good morning everyone. Today we will be studying Unit 3 of our course AGCON 102. Herein we will be talking about what is agricultural economics and what is its importance. Hello, I am Dr. Sanjay, Assistant Professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics, CCS HAU, SR. So let's begin. These are the contents of this lecture. We will be studying what do we mean by agricultural economics and how different authors have defined it. What are the characteristics of agriculture? Peculiar characteristics which differentiates it from a manufacturing sector. What is the importance of agriculture and its role in our economic development? What is agricultural planning? What has been done so far in terms of agricultural planning and development in the country, and what has been its contribution in the development of the country so far? And in the end, some suggested readings for this chapter. What do we mean by agricultural economics? Agricultural economics is made up of two words, agriculture and economics. And as you know, as you must have studied in agronomy also, agriculture is made up of two words, ager and cultura, which means essentially means cultivation of soil. Broadly, it is the cultivation and or production of crop, plants, or livestock products. All right, and whereas economics is made up of Greek word combination of Greek words oikos and nomos, which means household management. Here we study how people choose to use the scarce productive resources. Let's say the money they have, the labor which they can put in, the machinery they have. These things are scarce. The requirement is more than the availability. So how people decide to use these things to produce various goods, and how to distribute these goods between the various members of the society for fulfilling their needs. So, how do we define agricultural economics? We just studied agricultural economics is made of two words, agriculture and economics. Agriculture means soil cultivation, and whereas economics means household management. So, how do we relate these things in one sentence, or what do they mean collectively? These are the three definitions given by some renowned authors, Professor Gray, Snodgrass and Wallace, and Goodwin, and a common definition in the end. Professor Gray has said that it is a science where the principles and methods of economics are applied to the field of agriculture. It's very simple to understand. There are different principles in economics. When we apply them to agriculture industry, it becomes agricultural economics. Okay. When we apply it to manager's job, it becomes managerial economics. When we apply it to some different industry, then it becomes industrial economics. Snodgrass and Wallace, they have said that it is a phase of social science, as you studied in the unit first. Economics is also a social science because it studies human behavior. Snodgrass and Wallace have said that it is a social science in which attention is given to all aspects and problems related to agriculture. It's fairly simple to understand, which focuses on agriculture. It is a social science that focuses on agriculture. Okay. Whereas Goodwin has said that it is a social science concerned with human behavior, necessarily farmers here in this case, during the process of producing what the farmers produce, how they process it, how the distribution of these goods happen, and consuming the products on farms and ranches. So again, Goodwin has said that it is a social science which studies the behavior of farmers during what they do. Alright, and what they do is they produce, they process, they distribute. Different people are involved in these jobs, processing, distributing. It studies every one of them, and also the consumer of the agricultural products. Commonly, or common definition that can be made up after studying all these things is it is an applied field of economics. We can see it is a social science. It is a part of economics in which the principles of choice are given by principles of economics, are also called as principles of choice. And why do we call them principles of choice? Because the resources that we have to fulfill our needs are limited. Principles of choice are applied to use of scarce resources, as I said here, in the farming and allied activities, because the land, labor, water, electricity, all the things that are there with these with the farmers, agrochemicals, all these things are scarce. That means they are in lesser amount than the requirement. Okay, so how does the farmer applies the principles of economics to these things in its farming and allied activities, different activities such as livestock management, also beekeeping, also these kind of things. Okay, so it also it deals with the principles that help the farmer in efficient use of factors of production for maximizing their income. It simply means the same. Essentially means the same thing, because the farmers is going to use these things in the more best possible manner. These are also called as factors of production. He is going to use these things in the best possible manner so that he can maximize his income. What are the characteristics of agriculture, and how are these things, how is agriculture different from other industries? The production in agriculture is highly dependent on weather. Alright, the prices of different products such as onion, or I can say okra, all the vegetables in nearby sir, the prices of cauliflower, tomato, and let's say carrot. If there is any untimely rains or different temperature stress, the production of these things is hampered in a big way, and which leads to the price fluctuation. So production of agricultural goods is entirely dependent on weather. That's why this is how it is different from factory production, because that works under a shed. It does not depend on whether the raw materials that are going to come in the process of production in a factory is entirely safe. It is entirely not independent of weather, whereas in agriculture everything depends on weather. Seasonality of production. These vegetables, cauliflower, tomato, carrots, they are season specific. Everything is season specific, whereas in India we have different types of climate. If cauliflower is not coming from Hisar, it might come from Himachal. Okay, if onion is not coming from Hisar, it might come from Maharashtra. But there is a certain seasonality of all the producers, all types of vegetables and crops in different areas according to the weather there, according to the climate there. The production of everything is season bound. These products are perishable in nature, although they can be processed and their shelf life can be enhanced, but by their nature they cannot be stored for long, because they do deteriorate. Their quality does deteriorate with time. Okay, in agriculture we cannot just produce what we want to produce. We might just want rice, grain, but we will get for we will get fodder, that fodder, you can say stubble, right? Paddy stubble or paddy straw with it. Same is the case with wheat, and same is the case with sugarcane. We do not want the extra unnecessary leaves. We just want sugar, and sugarcane also comes with a lot of leaves with it, which is not needed for us. For essentially, you can say you need vegetables. You need a tomato. You don't need a tomato plant. Okay. Same is with the other types of vegetables such as potato, onion, these kind of things. Unless everything is consumable, we just need the product, but not its plant. But we do get that as a joint product. Okay. Fodder, stubble, straw in the case of different types of grains, and different types of grains. Bulkiness of the product. That means the weight of these products is too much, which increases the cost of transportation. Alright, plus the value of these products is less. Weight is too much, therefore, and value is less. Value as mean the price is less, and the transportation cost is high. This is the transportation cost is high due to these things, because of heavy weight and less value. Okay, that's why the prices increase more than their worth. problem of standardization, because everything is dependent on weather. It cannot the production of agricultural goods is not of a specific quality because of a lot of varieties and different varieties that are cultivated in different places. Fixing grades that the apple that is coming from Himachal is of grade A, B, C, D based on different characteristics, colors, taste, and look. We cannot fix the same grades for the apples that are coming from Kashmir because of different variety, and because these things are coming from different places, there is necessarily a quality difference. So with variety, with the place of cultivation of the same product, fixing of grades is very difficult because there is a lot of variety. So we need to fix a lot of grades for different types of varieties and products coming from different places. More characteristics, time lag in production, because from the date of sowing to the date of harvesting, it takes a lot of time, and this time there is a lot of uncertainty due to different things, such as mainly due to weather. So there is a time lag between production, between the starting of production and the time when we get that product. Okay, generally we cultivate a crop based on last year prices. If the prices of carrot in my locality were high last year, I will try to increase the area of carrot this year in a hope that I might get a better price this year also. But generally this doesn't happen. Large proportion of land, because of a huge population and low productivity, that means per output per unit area, we need to dedicate a lot of land to fulfill the needs of our population. Law of diminishing returns. As you have seen in a factory, if a factory is having 10 laborers and is producing 1 ton per day, if we just increase the amount of labor, and they will start producing 2 tons a day of the product. 2 tons, their output will exactly double. This is called as constant returns to scale. Constant returns to scale. Input doubled, output doubled. But this does not happen in agriculture. If we keep on increasing the quantity of input gradually, what will happen is output, that is why, will increase at an increasing rate first, then it will increase at a decreasing rate, and then it will start increasing at a negative rate. That means the total production will start falling. This is the character of agriculture. Whereas in factory type of production, there is a constant return to scale. If you increase the inputs by 2 times, and the output will also increase by 2 times. Nature of demand. The demand of agricultural products is inelastic in nature. What it means is, let us see by a diagram. Inelastic demand curve is necessarily a steep curve. What it means is, let's understand this way. What it means is, let's say this is the price P1 and price P2, quantity Q2, Q1. At price P1, the quantity demanded was Q2. Alright, when the price due to scarcity of agricultural goods increased, the quantity demanded does not reduce very much. See, the price increase is high, whereas the quantity increase is low, because people cannot survive without these agricultural goods. So that's why they cannot reduce the consumption of these agricultural goods very much, even if the price increases further. Let's say if the price increases further, the quantity demanded does not reduce very much, whereas the price difference you can see and quantity difference you can see. So this is called as inelastic nature of agricultural production demand. Efficiency of capital. See, the rate of return in case of agriculture is lesser than other investments. So the money or the machinery that you are buying with that money, when you are using that machinery for agriculture, the rate of return, the percentage return on your money that you are getting in agriculture is lesser as compared to the factory production. That's why people who are engaged in agriculture, their income is increasing at a lesser pace or at a slower pace than the people who are engaged in manufacturing sector. Producers share in consumer rupee. As you can see, let's say onion. It comes from a farmer, then it will go to a the largest mandi for onion in the country is in Maharashtra, that is Lasalgaon market. Lasalgaon APMC, it is an APMC, Agriculture Produce Market Committee. That means a regulated market that is governed by the government. Okay, government laws and regulation. It goes to this market, then there will be a then some trader is going to buy it. He will going to transport it to some different traders in the country. Let's say it comes to Haryana, then one more person is going to buy, then one more person is going to buy, then your street hawker is going to buy. Street hawker, that means the ready wala that comes into your colony, and then you are going to buy, then it will come to the final consumer. So you can see this chain. This is called as a value chain. Okay, people are performing different functions. This farmer, he produced, the major portion of the cost came from his pocket. He produced, gave it to a trader based on auction, and he transported it. So transportation guys came in, they took the product, transported it to Haryana. In Haryana, it was again auction between people, between different commission agents. They gave it to these massacres who were sitting under the shed in APMC, you might have seen, and from there it is bought by street hawkers, then it reaches to the consumer. So this value chain is very big. So in the end, this farmer might have got rupees 2 per kg for his onion, but the consumer might have paid, or you can see you are paying right now 20, right now the market price for onion is 20 rupees per kg. All right, so how much is the share of producer in consumers rupee? It is just 10%. Out of the 20 rupees spent by the consumer, only 10% goes to the farmer, rest goes to these people in the middle. So that's why the producers share in consumers rupee in terms of different agricultural goods is very low. In case of vegetables and fruits, this is very less, whereas in case of grain crops, it is higher to around 60, 70, or even 80%. All right. What is the importance and what is the role of agriculture in economic development? See, economic development traces its origin to agriculture, and all the developed countries were basically agricultural in origin. Be it USA, be it UK, be it different European countries, you name any developed country, be it Scandinavian countries, Switzerland, Denmark, these kind of countries, they were all agricultural economies in the starting. Okay, from agriculture they shifted to manufacturing, and now they are focusing on service sector. Okay, this is called a structural change. When countries are first agricultural in nature, that means a major portion of the population is engaged in agriculture. People start shifting from agriculture to manufacturing sector, then out of the manufacturing sector to the services sector. Okay, manufacturing sector means essentially means the different types of industries. Okay, whereas service sector means different types of services that are being provided, such as IT, banking, transportation. Okay, and different types of, let's say, hospitals, hospitality means hotel and restaurant sector, hotels, restaurants. These kind of services are being provided by people as there is structural change happening in the country. So as you can see, there is a declining share of agriculture in the GDP. Some people shift from here, some people keep on moving from here. But few people still remain in agriculture. You can find in USA only 5% of the population, 2% of the population, UK, European and Scandinavian countries, let's say 2 to 10% of population is engaged in agriculture. Still, their people are there in agriculture. but most of them have moved on to manufacturing or to uh, service sector. All right. So as we know, as the structural change happens, the share of agriculture in GDP, that means the income of the country, total income of the country, reduces as the structural change happens. Okay, because in the part of income of the total country that is coming from agriculture is going to reduce, because people are moving out of that profession, people are going to other professions where they are earning more money. So the share of these sectors keep on increasing, because these are more remunerative to the people who are working in it, whereas agriculture, the income growth is very less. That's why the share of agriculture in GDP reduces. There is a declining share of agriculture in GDP in India and many developing countries, but this sector still occupies a prominent, very important place in all the economies, all the countries, because of its role. And what is its role? We will be studying by 5 points. It contributes to the national income, how it contributes, how much it contributes. Employment, how many people are engaged in agriculture and related activities. It is a source of food for the entire country, source of food, or you can say food security, source of raw material for different types of industries that are working. This manufacturing sector I am talking about. It is a source of raw material for this manufacturing sector. International trade, wherein it will be earning dollars for you. Okay, so let's see how the agriculture is contributing to the national income of the country. This is a graph for India. As you can see, from 2011-12, the share of agriculture has only slightly reduced from 18.5% to 17.6% in 2019 and 20. These three colors you can see are of share of different. The blue one is blue, shows the share of agriculture, forestry and fishing collectively. The red one, industry or you can say manufacturing sector. Green one is the service sector. So this data does not show much of a difference. Let's see a little past data now. Can you see this thing right now? See, agriculture sector, agriculture and allied sector, agriculture, industry, mining and quarrying, manufacturing and services. As you can see, 1950s, agriculture and allied sector was holding 51.81%. It was contributing half of the income of the country. Right now, it is just contributing nearly one fifth of the less than one fifth of the income of the country, whereas manufacturing, which of its share was just 10% of the total income, now it has increased to 12%. In case of services, the value of the income that was being given out by service sector in 1950s was just 33%, which has now increased to 57%. So you can see here, this is called a sectoral change. With time the share of agriculture reduces, whereas the share of industry increases and the share of service sector increases. Now let's move on to the next point. It contributes to the agriculture contributes to the employment also. How does it contribute to employment? As you can, more than 60% of India's population and most of the people who are living in the rural areas are either directly or indirectly dependent on agriculture. A rural economy moves around agriculture. Some are directly engaged with it, some are owners or some are cultivators who have leased in the land, some are laborers who are working on the land of different people. Indirectly, you can also call laborers to be indirectly employed from agriculture, and operators of machinery, people who have bought different types of machinery and using them to rent out to different people, or they do themselves drive those machinery and work for the farmers, or you even can say the village RTO, or you can say commission agent or money lender. His job is also dependent on agriculture because he is lending money to the farmers. Okay, so essentially we can trace the uh, you know trace the basic point where this occupation of money lending is coming from, it is coming from agriculture only. Okay, because essentially giving out money to the farmers. Also agro input manufacturing sector, agro input manufacturing which include agrochemicals, weedicide, pesticides, different types of feeds for different types of livestock, and inputs for different types of crops. You just list it out, and there are thousands of products that are being produced by agro input manufacturing sector, that is that is surviving because of agriculture. Okay, so this is essentially the contribution of agriculture to the employment. The employment in this manufacturing sector is because of the agriculture that people are doing. Agro processing, different types of oil mills, cotton mills, sugar mills, all these things are in operation because agriculture is there. Agriculture is in operation. Agro produce manufacturing, here they process goods, here they take out, extrude oil from different types of products, extrude, they separate the cotton from cotton seed and use that cotton seed for making different meals for different types of animals. Agro produce manufacturing, such as sugar and bakery products, when we are using sugarcane and wheat and making new products out of them. So agriculture is providing these raw material for this type of manufacturing units. A bakery that is there in your neighboring area is essentially in service because of agriculture. Okay, agro input manufacturing, again it comes here: pesticides, seeds, feed industry, machinery, implements. I have repeated this point, so you can consider it one only. Value chain participants, as I told you, in moving a product from the producer to the consumer, there are many people such as traders, transportation jobs, and the people who pick up the bags and what do you call them? I just forgot the name for those people. Let's say the labor that is involved in the transportation, in picking, in cleaning and drying, and the salesperson, as you can see in the market, commission agents, then masakors, and then the street hawkers. See, this much of employment is there because of agriculture only. Different products have different length and different types of people participating from moving these products from the producer to the consumers. Okay, so you can imagine different products, different people are involved in different products. So how much of employment is being generated because of a single fruit? Okay, single vegetable. Trade, internal and external trade. Internal trade, these traders, when they move products from a district to the other district, state to a different trade, or the exporters and importers, which send our product out of the country or import the agriculture products out of the country to India. Okay, everything we eat and all the industries related to it, whatever you are consuming throughout the day, is getting into your mouth because of agriculture, and it is coming to your mouth by, you know, from the hands of, by passing through the hands of many people. So all the things that are related to your plate and all the people that are related to moving that product from the field to your plate are essentially in having an occupation because of agriculture. So can necessarily you cannot even emphasize, enough of the on the importance of agriculture in the share of employment that it is providing in this country. Contribution of agriculture to employment, as you can see according to the data, the total population of the country has increased from 36 crores to 121 crores in 2011, as per the population census of 2011. Out of this population, agricultural workers, as you can see, 71% were cultivators and 28% were agricultural laborers out of total laborers. a total of 70% of the population, 69% of the population was dependent on agriculture directly. People who are working on agricultural fields and people who own those fields, who themselves work there, 70% directly. And how is the figure standing now? This figure is still at 54.6% direct employment, directly employed in agriculture. 54.6% of the population was directly employed in agriculture even in 2011. So, and we have not even considered the different, not considered different industries related to agriculture. If we consider those industries, this entire country, just leaving out a few people who are engaged in factories and service sector, entire country is dependent on agriculture. Entire country is having employment because of agriculture. It is a source of food, or you can say source of food security. Year-wise production of major crops from 1950s to 2018 and 19. As you can see, the production of food grains, which includes rice, wheat, maize, and some other nutricereals, has increased from 50.82 million tons to 5 crore tons. You can no, zero point 0.5 crore ton to 2.8. It has, you can simply see, it has increased 6 times. That is the job that our scientists and the farmers have done. In case of pulses, the production has increased 3 times from 8.4 million tons to 23.40 million tons. In case of oil seeds, from 5.16 million tons to 32.26 million tons, 6 times. All right. In case of cotton, it has increased to 8 times. In case of jute and mesta, it has increased to 3 times. In case of sugarcane, it has increased nearly 8 times. So you can see how much of, even under the population pressure, as you know, the population, how it has increased at a large scale, or you can say a very huge pace it has increased, but still the agriculture has kept up with the demand and increased production of the necessities. These things are essentially necessities of life. These things are consumed, these things help feed the people and keep them alive. So this is the job that our farmers and our scientists have done in keeping the country's tummy full. Also, you can see the production of milk, egg, and wool. Production of milk has increased 4 times in the last 30 years only. The data of previous years I could not find, from 1990s to 2018-19. It has increased increased 4 times. In production of eggs has increased to 5 times. Production of wool has more or less remained stable. Alright, this might be due to different reasons which I don't know of right now, so I frankly not going to tell you anything about it right now. Fish production in India, there is inland fish production, that is, inland means due to rivers and ponds that are available in different villages, and marine production. The total production has increased more than nearly 10 times. Okay. What it means is the per capita availability and per capita requirement data I was supposed to gather, but I couldn't find. But I will be telling you in the coming lectures about the per capita availability and per capita requirement of the country, which can tell us about the gaps. Okay, how much of the things which we are consuming in the country, let's, we are consuming 100 tons of wheat, how much is being produced in India, and how much is being it is coming from foreign countries. Okay, as you can see, this is the case in this. We need to import many agricultural goods from foreign countries because still we are not producing enough for the, which can fulfill all our requirements. Okay. This is the case in case, as I said, we are not producing enough of certain things which are, which can fulfill our requirements. Edible oils, vanaspati ghee, and these two things we are importing to fulfill our requirements. That means our requirements are more than the production. So many things are being imported. Still, you can see in the last 40 years, the production of edible oils has increased to nearly 6 times. But still, we have to import edible oils from foreign countries to fulfill our needs. Same for vanaspati, this no, its production has reduced. Sugar, the production has increased to 3 times in the last 40 years. Per capita availability of food grains. Sorry, it was the per capita availability, not the total production. The, the amount of oil available per person was 3.8 kg per year, alright, which is now 18 kg, 6 times. The production has, the availability has increased 6 times, but still we are importing. Same as with vanaspati, the availability has reduced. With sugar, the availability has nearly increased 2.5 times per person availability per year. Okay, per capita necessarily means per person. Net availability of food grains per annum in India, kgs per year. For rice, wheat, other cereals, total cereals, pulses, and total food grains. Okay, this food grains include pulses, rice, wheat, and some other cereals also. Okay, the per capita availability of rice and wheat was 58 grams and 58 kg and 24 kg per year in 1951. Whereas in 2019, the availability of rice has increased to 69.1 kg per year and of wheat to 65.2 kg per year. Whereas in case of other cereals, the availability has reduced because people have shifted from other cereals to these major cereals. The total availability of cereals has increased by only 50% per capita availability. Per capita, you can see the growth in production of these goods and the growth in population. These both things count when we are talking about per capita availability. कितनी तेजी से हमारी production बढ़ी है और कितनी तेजी से हमारी population बढ़ी है. Alright, the production has increased a lot, but per person availability has not increased very much because our population growth has been too much in the past 50 or 60 years. It has been slowing down in the last decade, but it is still a lot. Our agriculture needs to do a lot to keep our people, people healthy and at least meet their daily food intake requirements. Agriculture as a supplier of raw materials. You just fathom how much of industries, how many of industries are surviving, are producing different things based on agricultural raw materials. There is a close interdependence between agriculture and industrial sectors. Agricultural sector provides raw material for which type of industries? Textile, whatever you are wearing, it, the product, the basic product, cotton, jute, not jute, majoritarily cotton is coming from agriculture. Automotive sectors, tires, the rubber that is coming in in the automatic sector, the leather and upholstery of your seat, which is coming from textile sector. All these things come from agriculture and allied industries. Okay, consumer good, whatever you are consuming, whatever you are eating, it is not made out of machines, it comes from agriculture. Timber that comes from forest. Gas, you can say gas and fuel. There are different types of plants which do give out us fuel. Jatropha production is not very much, but they do give us some fuel, biofuel which can be consumed. Gas, which is methane gas that is coming out of biogas plants, and the material for that is coming from livestock sector. Leather, which we use as consumers, and that is also used in automotive sector. Pharmaceuticals, the active ingredients that are used in making different types of medicines, are coming most necessarily from forest, from the biodiversity we are having in our forest. So forest is generally considered as a part of agricultural sector, agriculture and allied sector. When we are talking about just agriculture sector, forestry does not become a part of it. But when we are talking about agriculture and allied, then fishery, forestry, these kind of things come along with agriculture sector. And this forestry gives us ingredients for making different types of medicines. Wage goods. What are wage goods? For people who are working as workers, they need rice, wheat, pulses, oils, fruits, and vegetables. Whatever the workers are consuming are considered as wage goods. These wage goods, which make up the plate of a worker who might be working in the field of a farmer or in a factory, all these things come from a farm. That means it comes from agriculture. Alright. Agro based industries, as I told you, agro produce processing units, rice mills, oil mills, cotton ginning mills. Agro produce manufacturing units, which makes new products by using agriculture produce, such as sugar factories and bakeries, which are making products using agricultural inputs. Agro input manufacturing units, seeds, feeds, and agrochemicals. All these things, all these industries are surviving because of raw material from agriculture. Okay, so you can understand the importance of agriculture because how much of raw material it supplies to different industries. Now, agriculture and international trade. International trade means export, when we are sending things out of the country, and import when we are bringing in, buying things from foreign countries to feed our population. Okay, these two things are coming, are concerned with international trade. Export minus import is called as balance of trade. Let's say we have sold 100 crore rupees of agricultural goods to foreign countries in 2019-20 and brought in, that is, we bought 80 crore worth of goods from foreign countries, agricultural goods. Okay, so the balance of trade is positive 20 crores. Okay, this is called as balance of trade. It can be positive, it can be negative. Okay, in the year 1990 up to the year 2018-19, the agricultural imports have increased in value. Okay, the value is in crores, 1205 crores to 1,37,000 crores. All right. Whereas agricultural exports have increased from 6,000 crores to 2,74,000 crores. All right. And you can see the balance of trade, value of exports minus value of import, throughout the all these years it is mostly positive. In case of 2018-19, it is like 1.45 lakh crores. Okay, this much is the amount of money we are earning by selling agricultural goods to foreign countries. Okay, in case of agriculture, the balance of trade is positive. That means we are earning more dollars than we are spending. This trade happens in terms of dollars. We'll be understanding how it happens in terms of dollars in the coming lectures. We will be talking about RBI. Okay, whereas you can see agricultural imports and agricultural exports, the balance of trade is positive. That means agriculture is allowing us to earn money by selling agricultural goods to foreign countries. Whereas if we consider the total imports and total exports, there the balance of trade is negative. Alright, you can see 3,59,000 crore, 35,94,000 crores, whereas the export is 23 lakh crore. That means 35 lakh crores of imports and 23 lakh crores of exports. Here the balance of trade is negative. That means we are buying more things than we are selling. In agriculture, we are selling more things than we are buying, but in total terms, we are buying more things than we are selling. So, as you can see, the importance of agriculture in keeping this negative value lesser and lesser, because agriculture is allowing us to earn by selling agricultural products to foreign countries more than we are importing. Agriculture and international trade, more things which we are just selling in 2016, 17 and 18. The value quantity is in 1000 tons, value is in rupee crores. What we have sold in these 3 years exports, okay, tea, coffee, rice, basmati and other basmati. We have sold them of a value of 5000 crore, 57 and 5700 crores, 32,000 crores. Other more is it basmati? Yes, it is basmati. That means you can see the importance of basmati cultivation. We have sold 32,000 crore worth of basmati to other countries. Okay, spices 23,000 crores, oil meals 10,000 crores, castor oil 6,000 crores, sugar worth 10,000 9,500 crores. Also, fresh fruits and vegetables cumulatively up to 10,000 crores. Okay, buffalo meat. You might have not expected this, but India is one of the largest exporters of buffalo meat, that is beef, in the world. One of the largest exporters, 25,000 crores. Okay, and in Haryana also. First is Basmati, Haryana. Out of Haryana, the exported products first is Basmati, and second number is buffalo meat. You might have not expected this, but this is the reality. Marine products worth 47,000 crores are being sold by the Indian exporters to the world. Cotton raw 14,000 crores, and total agricultural exports 2,74,000 crores in 2018 and 19. Of the total national exports, the share has been falling, but the value, as you can see, how much it has been increasing. Agricultural planning and development in the country. In the early 20th century, this was the first step taken by Britishers by establishing a Royal Commission on Agriculture, which led to the development of Indian Council of Agriculture Research in 1929. M. Visvesvaraya was the first person who brought in the term planning for agriculture. Economic Program Committee was formed in 1947 under the chairmanship of Dr. Sri Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the first Prime Minister of our country, which led to the formation of Planning Commission in 1950, which was functioning up to year 2012, 2017, and after the Modi government came in, they decommissioned this Planning Commission and brought in Niti Aayog. Okay, the job of this planning commission was to make 5-year plans. That means plan for 1 to 5 years, plan for coming 5 years at once. Okay, these are the major developments that have happened in the agriculture sector. In the institutions related to agriculture sector, what has been done, I could not accommodate many things, but these are some of the major developments that have happened in agriculture sector. Land reforms, wherein land ceilings, that means the total maximum amount of land a family can have, was brought in, and the extra land that was then left was distributed among people who had lower amount of land. The land reforms, they came in just after independence. NAFED, National Agricultural Cooperative Marketing Federation, National Seed Corporation, National Cooperative Development Council, and this was Agricultural Credit Council. I don't remember. Agriculture Refinance Corporation. These things were made in 1958 and 1963. This helped people in marketing, in terms of seeds, and in terms of developing a cooperative behavior among the farmers of the country. Agricultural Credit Agriculture Refinance Corporation. This was made under RBI for directing credit specifically towards agriculture. Later on in 1965, Food Corporation of India and National Dairy Development Board was made. Food Corporation of India, which is playing a predominant main role in the food security scheme, that is public distribution system. This FCI buys agricultural produce at MSP from the farmers in different states, and then stores and then distributes to the needy people. National Dairy Development Board was also made in 1965 for giving a boost to the development of dairy sector in the country. High yielding varieties program, which was started in 1967, which led to green revolution in the country. In 1969, there came in social control and nationalization of banks, because the banks at that time were controlled by private companies or the people who were related to private companies. So what they used to do, they used to take money or deposits from people like you and me and give loans to corporates only. Alright, and the farmers were left out. The major sector, the priorities of the government were left out. That's why the government imposed social control. That means government control, that they were supposed to act as per the likings of the government, but they didn't comply. And in the same year, 1969 only, after 5 months of social control, nationalization, that means those private banks were made government banks. Okay, this was essentially done to cater the needs of agriculture sector. Operation Flood, which was related to increasing milk production in the country, was started in 1970. All India coordinated research projects for different types of crops was started in the country by ICAR. Regional rural banks in 1970 to serve the needs of marginal and small farmers and rural artisans. That means people having cottage industries, small industries in the rural area. These banks were specifically made to cater their needs. Okay, because they were considered unbankable, and these banks, bigger banks, were reluctant in opening branches in rural areas. That's why these specific banks were opened in the country. Initially, 5 banks were opened in 5 different states. In Haryana, the bank was Haryana Grameen Bank. Alright. KVKs, many KVKs were set up in the area in the year 1977 and 78, and in 1982, a specific bank, National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development, was made by RBI and the Government of India, which focused directly on agriculture only, which focused on the lending. That means the loans that were being given by the different banks to the agricultural sector, the these were governed by NABARD. NABARD used to oversee whether the banks are following the targets, that how much of the credit should go to the agriculture sector. It was supervising cooperative banks. Okay, you will be studying what are cooperative banks. It was supervising cooperative banks entirely, also supervising the lending of commercial banks such as SBI, PNB, and also it was supervising these RRBs, regional rural bank. That means this bank were necessarily made for developing agriculture and specifically catering the needs of agriculture. Then came yellow revolution, which leads to the increased production of oils in the country in 1991 and 1992. This was an important phase in the development of this country. In this year, LPG was done. LPG means liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Which means is liberalization means ending some rules which were, there was a lot of regulations by the government. In if you want to open a factory, there was a lot of licensing required. You required hundreds of license, different types of license, not hundreds but many types of licensing was required for you to open a factory or open a, you can say, you start a business. So this was done away with. Privatization, many government sector factories were given to private people. Okay, this is called as privatization. Globalization means, that means trade with the world had to be started. Okay, and this trade is done under different set of rules. So this was done in 1991 and 1992. Before it, India was a country that used to sustain on itself, but these things were done because of few problems, which if you are interested we can talk about in the coming lectures. All right. Then came the KCC, Kisan Credit Card, in 1998 and 99, which gives us crop loans for covering the operational expenditure of growing a crop. In 2016, then came Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, after many insurance schemes that have already been tried and tested in the country. Now Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and weather based crop insurance scheme. These two are the major schemes that are there in the country, which ensures the farmer's crop from several types of natural calamities. When the farmers pays a small premium of, let's say, based on the value of different crops, this is necessarily an insurance product provided by different companies for ensuring the, you can say, for ensuring the losses, that the farmer does not suffer losses from the natural calamities. ENAM, E-National Agricultural Market, an online platform was started in 2016, connecting 585 agricultural produce marketing committee. Just necessarily understand these are mandis. As a mandi is there in Hisar and in Bhiwani and in different districts. 585 mandis were connected online so that farmer can sell from one place to another. A buyer from South India can buy product of a farmer of Haryana sitting there itself. Alright. And the amendments that are made in 2020. There are three amendments that are made. First one is on contract farming, which makes different laws related to contract farming. Second one is uh, uh, farmers agriculture on agreement on. See, I don't remember the actual name of this, but the necessary meaning is farmer can sell anywhere they want in the country, which was already there under ENAM. So there is a lot of debate around it. Third one is on uh, Essential Commodities Act. See, these things are extremely controversial. The government says they are beneficial, the critics say they are not beneficial. Contract farming, as it is, it's an okay deal because they have framed laws. Earlier, each state was supposed to make laws for contract farming because agriculture is a state subject, but the farmer, and those laws made by different states were not synchronous with each other. Farmers agreement on just FAPA, just take it as FAPA, wherein the farmer can sell their produce. Anybody can buy their produce. Anybody who wants to buy agricultural goods can buy using an Aadhaar card and a PAN card. They don't need to have a license. Earlier, a licensed commission agent or a trader could only buy agricultural goods, but now anybody can buy, and the government expects as more buyers will come in, the prices will shoot up and it will be beneficial for the farmer. But this doesn't happen in many cases because free trade is already there in most of the most of the part of the country, but these things are debatable. Essential Commodities Act. Earlier, there was a provision that, let's say, if you are a processor and you have a capacity of 1 lakh tons of tomato, all right, and you have stored this much amount of tomato, and there is a scarcity in the market, the prices are shooting up, the government will ask you to dump 90,000 tons at the market price on the very same day. So, what will happen is supply increases and the prices come down. Alright, this was done under the ambit of Essential Commodities Act, which now stands amended, and the government has said that in any case, if the processor is having the product, the has stored tomato up to 1 lakh tons, and this is his storage capacity, we cannot ask him to bring that produce into the market to lower the prices. We will not be interfering in this. Okay, which is a highly debatable point because controlling the prices by way of hoarding has been the case. Many people have done it, and if the government is giving up their right and is giving up the right to ask the producers to sell the tomatoes in this case in the market. This is called as levy. If the government cannot ask the people to bring out this product which has been hoarded to artificially increase the price, then this becomes a you can say grave situation for the people of the country, because earlier the government was able to control the prices by putting a levy on them, that is, get this produce out of your go down and sell it in the market, because the prices are high. But now the government is giving up on this right of theirs, so I don't know how the prices will be controlled once they shoot up due to artificial hoarding. Share of agriculture in 5-year plans. As I told you, there was a planning commission made in 1950 which made 5-year plans. 12 5-year plans have come in up to the date. Each 5-year plan was for 5 years, which is given by its name. That out of the total expenditure, 30%, and then from the second to the ninth 5-year plan, the expenditure on agriculture has remained stagnant from 20 to 22%. From ninth plan onwards, it has reduced to half. Alright, and after the 12th 7-year 5-year plan, that is after 2017, I don't have the data, but necessarily it might have reduced further. Alright, so by all this discussion, you have seen the importance and role of agriculture in the economic development of the country. So thank you everyone. I have collected this data from various sources, but you can also go through the major points by reading this source. Okay, and I will be sharing this video today only. So please go through it, and if you have any doubts, we can talk about them later on in the coming class. Thank you.